You can't mention iron without saying Tyson Campbell, that is. I'll tell you about all of that stuff here today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, good people? Welcome to another edition of Locked On Jaguars. I am the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, Tony Wiggins. We're at your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. Quick reminder, we are free on the YouTube page called Locked On Jaguars. You can subscribe for free. Make sure you do that. Hit the bell so you get notifications and the like button, and drop comments down below each episode. And if you listen to audio podcasts, wherever you happen to do that at, make sure you tap in every single day to make sure you do not miss an episode of Locked On Jaguars. Today's show and this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Want to give a special shout out to my everydayers, the guys and the gals that join here every single day on Locked On Jaguars. That's why we call you everydayers. What's going on? And if you want to be every day, and you want to be an everyday, you want to get a shout out every single day, you know what you got to do? Come back every day, and we'll make sure that we do that. But if it's your first time, that's cool. Come on in. It is my job to give you a reason to come back, and hopefully I'll do that today. I'm not going to talk boxing. I know I said earlier that I used the word iron and Tyson together. That's to get your attention so you become an everydayer, right? But what we're going to do is talk about iron versus iron. How do these units in practice make each other better? We're going to focus on the DBs and the wide receivers. And we can't mention DBs without mentioning Tyson Campbell. So we're going to talk a little bit about him today, how his battles have been going with Calvin Ridley, the importance of Calvin Ridley having that type of competition in practice, and that Tyson Campbell really appears to be ready for the next step and to put himself in that category of elites. We will talk about that. He's going to look a little different as an elite than some other people. And I'll give you some names of some guys that I think he sort of reminds me of that have been considered elite or are being considered elite right now. And then finally in segment 3, we're going to talk about that if he is elite and if he plays that way and he has that demonstrated performance, teams will start noticing, and how much pressure does that put on the other side? I call him D. Will, but it's Darius Williams. How much pressure does that put on him in order for this team to be successful and for him to step up to that? I'm going to tell you why I think he has a really, really good chance of being able to be all right at that spot. If you've been to training camp, you may have noticed a lot of one-on-one competition between the wide receivers and the corners, whether it be in drills, whether it be on individual drills or 7-on-7s. It could be in one-on-ones. It could be 7-on-7. It could be 11-on-11. But there's a lot of competition at multiple positions, by the way, where guys are competing and they're chirping and they're going back and forth. This is the thing that I like about camp. If the defense has a good rep or a good period, it seems like it's like you want to be happy about it, but then you're going, well, Trevor and these receivers aren't getting open and Trevor's making bad throws, or CJ Beathard's making bad throws. And then you come back tomorrow, because I mentioned in the show last week how the wide receivers and the tight ends pretty much got whooped. They got it handed to them a little bit, and then the next day they came back and they caught everything, right? That's what this is all about. It is not a reason to panic one way or another, but you absolutely want these things to happen, and you absolutely need them to happen. There needs to be a little bit of seesaw. There needs to be a little bit of back and forth, because that's going to prepare everyone for what's going to happen in the regular season when they finally see people they haven't seen all off season, and the best of the best. These DBs are going to need to get that work, if you will, as a phrase, get that work from Calvin Ridley, from Zay Jones, from Christian Kirk, and even all the guys trying to make the team, Evan Ingram. They're going to need that work because they're going to have to play DeAndre Hopkins, and they're going to have to play John Mechie, and they're going to have to play against Treylon Burks. They got to play against Pittman and those tall receivers up in with the Colts. And then I haven't even mentioned the non-conference schedule, the Stephon Diggs and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. You think, when they come around that corner, what do you think they're going to be trying to do? They're going to be trying to, turn these guys into toast. So you need to get that work. You need to get greased up. You need to work on your technique. You need to do all the things. And it works the other way. It works the other way when our receivers are going to go out there and they have to play these games against the other really, really good corners from around the league. It helps when you have a great quarterback. And if your quarterback is considered a better player than the quarterback of the other team, all of that stuff helps. It also helps you have a good offensive line and a running game. But that notwithstanding, what we've seen in the camp are these daily battles. And I love the fact that they match up Tyson Campbell a lot with Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley missed a year. Now, he missed a year, but he wasn't injured. We all know he was suspended. But still, there's just still this matter of him having to get that work. It's almost like a boxer in sparring. You have to get ready for every single situation. Shout out to my boy Errol Spence. He did not appear that he was ready for every situation, but that's another thing. And salute to Bud Crawford for a real good fight this weekend. I had to throw that in there. But we will have a situation where you'll see ups and downs, and then at some point when they change the schedule for the media and the fans aren't the only people that change the schedule for. We have our itinerary. We know at some point practice will not be available to the media, with the exception of stretching, some individual stuff, who's out there, a few drills here and there. And then the PR staff will go, all right, time to go. And that's when the team really gets in and starts working on not individual stuff, but team stuff, and it's specified things as it pertains to game plan and installing and installation. But for right now, it feels fun for us to see these guys putting this type of work in, because you get a chance to get a little bit of glimpse of where they are now, and then sort of use some critical thinking to say, okay, where they need to be before the first preseason game. And after the first preseason game, we'll see them in action, and they'll see what it feels like to be in a real game. And then you got the real stuff. So there's nothing better than to have Calvin Ridley out there working against Tyson Campbell, who I believe is on the verge of becoming a star in this league, albeit a different kind of star in this league, but a star nonetheless. And I really, really do believe he is absolutely on his way to being able to do that. And I'm going to tell you how he's going to do it and who it's going to appear maybe that he looks like, because I'm going to give you the best of Tyson Campbell. I'm going to tell you exactly who I think he is as a player from where he was, and the knock, if you will, if you want to say a knock, the thing that folks said about him when he was drafted and even throughout his first year. And then all of a sudden things turned. So we're going to talk about all of that here today on Locked On Jaguars. We'll do it in segment 2 after I let you know about FanDuel, who is the sponsor for today's episode. You need to take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend on betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. You guys are an official partner of this podcast because if you're an everyday, you're here every single day, and I absolutely appreciate you. You are our why. We try to get you as much information and think about some things. Really, we don't shoot from the hip, but we organically think about, okay, if I was a fan, what would I want to hear about? And what's the significance of this? So we started out talking about iron, sharpening iron at every position. But today we're sort of zeroing in a little bit on the DBs and the wide receivers. Specifically, Tyson Campbell versus Calvin Ridley. It's been super, super competitive. I wouldn't say anybody had the advantage. Sometimes, you can make a play and the other guy still makes a play. You can have really good coverage. Guy still catches the ball. Sometimes a guy will have an advantage over you and he'll make a play that you don't make and he drops the ball, which happened earlier today with Calvin Ridley. He had a drop when there was good coverage, but the ball was still placed where it's supposed to be. He did everything he's supposed to do and didn't reel it in. All of that stuff amounts to timing getting better. You can't really simulate a game, but you can put yourself in a little bit of fire and compete. And I'm gonna tell you something. When they go one-on-one, all eyes, everyone's eyes. That's probably the only time eyes are not on Trevor Lawrence. Sometimes I catch people too talking about watching Trayvon versus the left tackles because they want to see how Walker Little is doing, and they want to make sure that Trayvon is doing things a little bit differently. But for the most part, that is the key matchup. The key matchup every single day in practice and training camp is whenever you get a chance to see Calvin Ridley lined up against Tyson Campbell. Now, why is that important? We've seen Calvin Ridley have 1,300 yards and be a budding superstar prior to him being suspended. We saw a glimpse last year of Tyson Campbell doing the same thing. And I believe Tyson Campbell is ready for that next step. And that next step is recognition from around the league, play on the field that leads to notice and accolades off the field. And hopefully, if he plays as good as I think he can, it'll be one of those situations where it really helps the Jaguars win more games. And also winning more games also brings more attention to the guys, especially on defense, because folks will look at it and say, okay, why are they winning? Because I'm going to tell you something. When you start winning, people will dissect it, especially the people that didn't think you were going to win in the first place. They'll go and try to find a reason why it's lucky. I remember I had a debate last year with somebody, and they said, the way the Giants are winning is not sustainable. So that's a concern. I said, damn concern. They're winning. They don't matter. They know that they're not fully equipped, but they want to change the mindset and change the culture. They want to win these close games. They'll fix it on the fly. Everything that they want to do, maybe they're doing things that are fundamentally what they want to do, but they're not going all the way out with it because they know they don't want to expose themselves too much. They want to keep everything tight and keep everything in the pocket. And then when they get better personnel-wise, they'll just start adding to that basic package. Well, folks will dissect you in a minute to try to find out, are you really that good? And that's when they'll put the microscope on one or two people. So the knock on Tyson Campbell when he came out, and it's hard to say that a guy had a knock on him when he was like the first pick of the second round, right? But he's a five-star recruit coming out of high school, American Heritage High School down in Miami. He played for Coach Patrick Surtain, who is now the defensive backs coach at Florida State. Of course, Surtain also played in the NFL for a long time, was a very, very good player for the Miami Dolphins. But there was something that people said about him out of high school. They said he didn't play the ball very well. He didn't have ball skills. But he was tall. He's about 6'1". He's fast. I think he was a track guy. He's athletic. He's long. He's physical. But then we saw as soon as he got here, one of the things he did, it seemed like he couldn't find the ball. Right? It felt like me. It felt like me. Just not being able to find the ball. You ever seen those dudes halftime of the game with the punt, pass, and kick competition, how they were throwing the ball and all the dude had to do was catch it. And it was funny because they actually was throwing it right towards the area in the press box that we were sitting. And all he had to do was catch it. He got it, but he wasn't tracking it. It was like a punt. He ain't tracking very well, and all of a sudden, I think at the last minute, he realized, oh, my God, I got to take 4 or 5 steps up. And he tried to run, and he slipped and fell. And I ain't going to lie to you. I spit my drink out and my popcorn because I was laughing so hard because there's nothing more funny than seeing a grown man make a fool of himself. But the thing is you saw a little bit with Tyson Campbell. You saw it in the preseason his rookie year. Ball be thrown, he'd be running with the dude, and he'd be turning around. And by the time he turned around, the dude's on the other side catching the ball, and he'd go. And everybody's like, oh, all he has to do is figure that out. Joe Cullen, who was the defensive coordinator at that time, I forgot who they were playing. It may have been Baltimore. I don't know if it was Baltimore, but it was somebody. Well, Cullen did something. He started having him play off and keeping everything in front of him. Okay? Instead of playing press man-to-man, he had him playing off a little bit. and they were doing a little bail technique and playing a little bit of a zone. It's almost like a matchup, so he could see things in front of him as opposed to him running with his back turned towards the ball. And I figured that was probably something temporary, so things would slow down for him a little bit. Okay, and that's a term you hear coaches talk about a lot. When things slow down, it doesn't mean guys aren't smart. So I want to clear that up right now. It doesn't mean they don't have an IQ. It doesn't mean any of that. I think when they talk about the game slowing down, they really talk about the player being more smooth, and they talk about the player not being so pressed to try to do so much while he's running so fast. When it slows down, you can calm down and you can realize you can depend on technique and not speed. Everything doesn't have to be fast. Some things are technique based, and you know when to turn around, when not to turn around. But somehow the light came on, and last year, under the new defense under Mike Caldwell and the coaching coach, defensive back coach Deshae Townsend, it seemed like the light came on. Now, I thought that there's no way that Tyson Campbell wouldn't be considered one of the top dozen cornerbacks in the league. Something came out. I don't know where it is. I don't want to say it was somewhere where it wasn't on some sort of publication, but they had my man ranked like 29th. And I know I have a tendency sometimes to see things before they happen and look at it from like a scouting perspective and say, you know what, in a year he's going to be here. I see where he's going, so I'm going to put him in that spot. I have a tendency to do that. Like right now, I'll tell you right now, Xavier Howard's on everybody's top 5, top 6 list. I take Tyson Campbell in a minute over Xavier Howard because Xavier Howard's getting a little older. He's been a little banged up. Tyson Campbell is younger. That doesn't mean that he's a value on what they think is going to happen in the future. Not necessarily how good a guy is today, right? You see it all the time. You see it all the time, whether it be free agency or something, if it's a little bit close. So I kind of in my mind sometimes, and I'll be honest, I'm a little bit guilty of doing that. And I'm elevating guys prematurely based on a projection. But I do believe this year, Tyson Campbell's going to step on that football field and be a super, super difference maker. Now, what type of difference maker? He's not Jalen Ramsey, guy who might get a pick six, make plays on the ball, is going to always challenge a guy one-on-one and make everything seem extremely personal, kind of pops on tape. And I'm going to just get that out of the way. That's not who he is. He's more of a corner that's sort of like Byron Jones was, who retired recently. Physical, may not ever lead the league in interceptions, but really, really physical guy, a real, a pain in the you-know-what to everybody else. And maybe that guy that teams just don't throw at very often. Maybe that guy that he doesn't get a lot of picks, but the guy that he's guarding doesn't catch a lot of balls either, and he'll get a lot of stuff. He'll get a lot of recognition because of the fact that he's that different type of dude. He's the guy nobody wants to throw at because you're not going to get an incompletion. So it's not like they won't throw at him because they're worried about him getting a bunch of interceptions, which I think he's really improved in that area. I think people will avoid throwing at him because they know it's going to be a hard throw because the guy ain't going to be open because of the physical traits of Tyson Campbell and the fact that he has really, really worked on his technique. So I think with him going against Calvin Ridley every single day in practice, that really, really helps. Now you ask the question, I asked the question, and it's easy to assume that you might ask the question. Well, Wig, if he's that good, there's still a way a guy like that can be beat. Like Jalen Ramsey, when he was here, he had Andre Bouye, right, on the other side. And by him having Bouye on the other side, that meant that side wasn't a pushover either. It wasn't a pushover either. You had to. Bouye was a good player. Well, Jalen Ramsey, but he was a really, really good player. You ask the question, if you were to ask me, well, can teams throw around him? Can they go the other way? Can they figure the other thing out? I'll tell you that in just a second. I'll also tell you real quick, make sure you check out the Locked On NFL podcast. It's every single day. In fact, the Wednesday version is available now, where James Rapine and I talk about all kinds of subjects from around the league, including whether or not they should change training camp and change the offseason schedule. We discussed that because of a couple of guys getting injured. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous that anybody would even make that suggestion. But make sure you stick around, because I'm going to tell you here in segment 3 whether the pressure will be on the other corner on the opposite side, and that guy is Darius Williams. I'll tell you that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, segment 3 here on Locked On Jaguars is AJ Bouye, not Andre Bouye. I knew I was missing something. Andre's my son. I talked to him right before I made this show, but it's AJ Bouye. But still, you get the point. The point is the question that we're asking here is the fact that Tyson Campbell starts to get this recognition. Teams will try to find a way around it, right? Usually when teams see a mountain, they figure out, okay, we can't go over, we'll go around it. The direction they're going to go is that to the other side with Darius Williams, and is Darius Williams up to par? I think he is, and I really believe that the first half of last season he was playing in the slot because that's a real important position for them, but that's not where he played before. And there's this, I can't remember the OGM, it might have been Bill Polian, that says never pay a guy to do something you didn't see him do before. I think the idea when you saw Williams, he's 5'9", about 197 pounds, super athletic, can dunk a basketball backwards. You assume that he has the mindset, because his body is built like a guy who can play inside, that he has the mindset to do that. First of all slot corners aren't short. Second of all, some of them are real tall, and they blitz them off the edge and they bring them in to sack the quarterback. So this idea that a short corner can't play outside is not necessarily true. I don't think Jair Alexander's that tall. Darrell Green wasn't tall. Aaron Glenn wasn't tall. He's better outside, and he's used to playing opposite another great corner because he did it when he won a Super Bowl with the Rams, and he played opposite, you got it, Jalen Ramsey. I knew there was a reason I was mentioning him, because I was going to bring that up, by the way. But yeah, this kid, I believe, is good enough to play outside opposite a great player and the team still be good enough to win a Super Bowl. Now, the Rams had something else that didn't allow quarterbacks to sit and wait. They had a guy named Aaron Donald, a guy named Von Miller, two of the best pass rushers from their respective positions in NFL history. In fact, Aaron Donald is probably the GOAT of defensive tackles, of interior defensive tackles. Shout out to Warren Sapp, but I think Aaron Donald is probably past him. And I believe Von Miller is the best outside edge person I have seen in the league since Lawrence Taylor. And that's saying something, because we're talking about Derek Thomas. We're talking about a whole bunch of dudes that have been stand-up outside linebacker. I believe Von Miller, a two-time champ, is the best. So you get those two dudes wreaking havoc. You don't have to cover that long. So the pressure will not just be on D. Will. The pressure to alleviate some pressure anyway from D. Will and Tyson will be on the pass rush. It will be on the pass rush. So all of this stuff works together. Corners that can cover help the pass rush because it makes the quarterback hold the ball a little longer. Pass rush helps the corners because it makes the quarterback get rid of the ball faster than he wants to, and it knocks the quarterback off of his square and takes him out of his comfort zone and makes him have to sometimes throw to only half the field. So all of these things come together and work together, and hopefully these things will work too. So a quick recap: cornerback and wide receiver battles have been good in both individual and team action. It's iron sharpening iron. The iron we're talking about here is Tyson, not Mike, but Campbell. And he appears to be ready. The impact that he's going to have on Calvin Ridley and helping Calvin Ridley get back up to speed from after missing a year. And will there be pressure on Darius Williams? Darius Williams has shown us in the past that he can handle playing opposite a great corner, and he did it and won a Super Bowl with the Rams. Make sure you check out Locked On NFL every single day, wherever you get your podcast. It's also free on YouTube to subscribe to, and Locked On Jaguars, and we'll be back here every single day because it's your team every day. We always thank you for the first listen, and we also thank again our sponsor at FanDuel, the official betting partner of Major League Baseball. Until next time, you guys take care of each other, and see you next time.